and welcome back to a new season of the NCMU Podcast, where we seek to equip the next generation of nerd culture ministers and missionaries. My name is Mark, lead pastor of Lux Digital Church, and one of your hosts here at the NCMU Podcast. And with me today, I am joined by that Denver guy. At least that's your YouTube channel name, I believe. And so, Denver, welcome to the show. We're so glad to have you here with us.
Yeah, great to be here with you guys, talking about the Lord, talking about business and how it all can intertwine successfully. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, business, content creation, video gaming, faith, and sort of you're at a place now where, man, it's really the integration of all of those things into one. I want to get into all of that because I think what I'm looking at from what you've developed, Denver, has been like success, but then also sustainable income, business, all of those things around success that I think is really unique and cool. And your faith is obviously a major portion of your life and the way that you interact in this space. But help us get to know you a little bit first. Tell us a couple things about yourself. We'd love to get to know you.
So I used to be a fourth grade teacher. I actually went to the University of Missouri. I live on the outskirts of St. Louis right now. I wanted to be Air Force, and about 2 years in, I found a girl. She didn't want to travel, so I thought, all right, compromise is I'll be a teacher. I thought that might be kind of fun, but at the same time, I thought I could not have envisioned myself in a classroom of kids, just me, and I'm in charge of like 25 kids. Anyway, the Lord brought me there, did not want to go, ended up loving it. Partway through that, I actually started a YouTube channel, and I had a cousin who was doing like family vlogging, and I thought, I love teaching. I love gaming. My whole life, I've been a gamer. I thought, let me just give it a go. Let's just see what happens. And man, over years and years of a lot of hard work, started taking off. Eventually, there was a new school that opened up. I thought, well, I could teach PE, a little bit easier, less meetings, less grading, all that good stuff. Gave me a lot more time to work on the YouTube channel, to the point where it was like, I'd be an idiot to not try this out. It felt like the Lord was just opening the door and saying, go. And I could never envision myself not teaching, especially growing up. I never had a ton. So it was always like, go to college, get a 9-to-5, retire when you're like 65. That's just what we were all taught. That was like the expectation. So me coming to not only my family, friends, everyone around me, even teachers, staff and students knew that I had this YouTube channel. But my wife's parents, I had to explain to the in-laws, I'm going to quit being a professional teacher,
bro,
and I'm going to do YouTube,
bro.
And that's exactly what I did.
The conversation with my dad, whenever I told him that I was leaving a church that I had served for 11 years and was like working towards becoming the next lead pastor, that I was going to leave and start a church on the internet for people who play video games, you would have thought it was that was a very difficult conversation.
It's so foreign.
Yeah.
They don't understand it. And in fact, if you think about it, we didn't understand it until we just did it. And that's like, I remember being a teacher, and one of the sayings or understandings that we had is we're preparing kids for jobs that don't exist yet. Little did I know that I was in preparation for a job that didn't exist yet. All of a sudden, I'm this content creator. So I'm teaching all day long. I come home and my wife makes me a coffee about this big, and I chug that thing, and I work until 1, 2 a.m. in the morning, and I do this for years. Like this, it was something I had to relay to the kids and stuff. Like they thought, oh, Mr. Moore's just going to be he's going to be a YouTuber. And I'm like, there is no just being a YouTuber. Content creation is very difficult work. But my goodness, when you love it, this is my vacation, man. Like, I love this stuff. I could do this morning till night. Same as a teacher, right? Because it's like, I don't know if your brain's like mine, where it's like, I've got to have something that keeps me engaged. I need to have problems to solve. When you're a teacher, it's like every 2 minutes, some kid's like, I need this. I got to figure this problem out and solve this. YouTube's the same way. I could sit here all day, different clients, different niches, different styles, different everything, and just be like, problem solve. I love it. It's my vacation.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple things, because what I like asking this question, and especially this is a good one because we're the same age. We found out like in pre-roll that we got married on the same day of the same year. Like we celebrate the same anniversary, which is wild. But you know what? It's crazy how many people that through doing this show I have experienced who are in their mid 30s ish, right? Who received a calling from the Lord all in and around the same time into this space. And if anything for me, that's confirmation. It's one thing, to think that God told me to do something. What I find is it's not discouraging to find that God told many people to do the same thing all around the same time, because that speaks of a movement of the Holy Spirit, not just me solo out there hoping that God did tell me to do this thing. So that's such a word of encouragement. But the question that I got to ask, and because we share so much in common, what was the game like as a kid? What was the game that like it clicked for you, and like that's the thing that really got you into gaming?
Gosh, that's such a good question. How far back do we have to go? I'd say I was a big MMO guy. And by the way, said. Like the fact, I just remember hearing it like in the back of my head over and over. The internet is a dark place, right? I mean, we can go to church and people are joyful. Yes, we're sinners. Yes, we are in need of a savior. But the internet's a dark place and people are not afraid to share darkness. So what better place to shine the light than across the internet? I thought that for gaming. I was like, dude, there's some, you come across some rough people who don't know the Lord in gaming. And I thought, what better place to shine the light? Anyway, I'd say if I had to pick one game where I was like, this is my passion, I'm obsessed, I love this, I'd say Dark Age of Camelot. Way back in the day, old back, MMO, dude. Everybody's playing, World of Warcraft and stuff. I was in Dark Age of Camelot, and I had a good buddy, and oh man, we had some good times in that game. But yeah, I'd say that really kicked me off. And then I hate to say, because I know this is a Christian podcast, Diablo 2 hooked me. And I had to explain to my mom back in the day, no, I'm fighting the evil. I'm killing the evil. I'm the good guy.
Dark Age of Camelot I played on my Uncle Ken's computer, and it was my introduction to MMOs, which led into my buddies and I playing EQ, which led to WoW, which has led to many MMOs over the years. And all of that being said, I definitely resonate with that, and I can distinctly remember my uncle's sitting in my uncle's basement and him teaching me sort of like the initial things on my first time really PC gaming. Which were you Midgard,
Albion, or Hibernia?
Oh my gosh, man! You know what? I only ever played at his house. My dad. I grew up in a household that like we were afraid to use the internet because we didn't know how they would find out that we were using it or something, and so
it was dial-up. They pick up the phone. Who's on the line? We're old.
Yeah, like man, I had to dial in to get into EQ, and so I definitely feel that, and I love what you shared a little bit about the light. When we started Lux, I started it out of a podcast, and the basic premise of that podcast was God redeemed my love for gaming, let me be a light to this small corner of the internet. And Lux is actually the Latin word for light. It comes out of Matthew 5, sitting on a hill, sitting on a hill cannot be hidden, you're the light of the world. And so we named our church after being a light. In fact, our mission statement is a light for every dark place.
Love that.
And so,
that's put that together, but that makes sense.
Major heartbeat of what we do at our church. And you know what? A part of Nerd Culture Ministry Collective and the Summit and the podcast as well is like, man, we're meeting with people from all different walks of life who have like, hey, how do I actually live out my faith in the gospel inside of this space? So you got started, Denver, with a YouTube channel. Tell me a little bit about that sort of like initial, you got your first couple of videos up and you started. What did you start your YouTube channel around? What was the focus, the heart behind it?
Yeah, so I was playing a game, and actually, you know what? I'll throw another game in. Harvest Moon, Nintendo 64.
Yeah, sure.
Traded my entire Pokemon card collection to my buddy. And I'm talking, man, if I had this today, I had a I had the Holo Charizard, opened the first pack ever when I was like 9.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I traded my entire set to my buddy to borrow Harvest Moon 64 for like 3 months. I just said, here you go. You can have it. And I borrowed the game. Didn't even get the game. Anyway, what's funny is because of Harvest Moon 64, fast forward like a couple decades, here I am playing Stardew Valley, which is now a very popular game. No one really knew about it though, but if you go back to my old videos, I was just like going back to, I love teaching, I love gaming. Let me just teach some tips in Stardew Valley. And it was like something that clicked really early on with me. is I know and you know, and anybody in content creation gets really good at saying, what do people want and how do I give it to them? That's the entrepreneur mindset. It's like, what are people looking for? What is valuable? They don't care about me. They will eventually, but we don't, when I go to Nike, I buy a hoodie. It's not because the person working at the counter. It's not because I know the Nike CEO. It's a good product. And then I eventually come to like the person who gives me the product, sure, right? Yeah. And so I knew early on, like, I can't just get in there and just talk and play the game and people will find me so amazing and awesome, because it's just not really how it works, right? So I thought, what's the most beneficial thing we can provide somebody, high value, and I can be good at it? And it was tips. I just thought, and I could tell anybody, if you're starting a YouTube channel, you can give tips. It doesn't matter if you're a plumber, tips for changing, fixing a toilet. It doesn't matter if you're a roofer. It doesn't matter no matter what you're doing, you can give tips. And I was playing Stardew Valley and I thought, let me just do some beginner tips. And that was it. That kind of kickstarted my career. Because I didn't have a whole lot of time, I wanted videos that could get a lot of views. Yeah. So it wasn't just, here's me playing it. Every once in a while I'll do a tips video. It was like, here's the tips video. I want this to get 100,000 views. Same thing over and over and over. And then it became, here's the tips video. If this doesn't get 1 million, I'm doing something wrong. Eventually over time, and this is just, the Lord could have led me. I don't know what it was, but I was with a group of YouTubers who were like, oh my gosh, at the time I'm at 10,000 subs. They're at 800,000, 1 million. I was like, these are legends in the YouTube space. Like I was like intimidated and starstruck. I'm playing a game called Fortnite with these YouTubers. And I tell them, yeah, I've got a plan to make a tips video about Fortnite, and no one knew about this game yet. This was nothing on nobody's radar. I already had that video made, but they told me, don't make it, you're too late. Thank goodness I had it made. I posted that video. It sat there for 2 weeks and didn't get any views. And all of a sudden it just exploded. And I woke up one morning and I'm showing my wife, I'm going, oh my gosh, look at this. And it's getting like 2,000 views an hour. Changed my entire life at that point. So that was it. I just got in. I decided I love teaching. I was good at it. I knew exactly how to arrange the tips. Like number 1 should be really good. If you get into a tips video, number 1 is bad, number 2 is bad, you're out, right? So I'm like, what's the best, juiciest thing? And all I did, made a decent thumbnail. I knew nothing about editing, thumbnails, nothing. I just taught myself it. I wasn't even that good at it. I still am not that good at it, but I know what gets people to click on things. That's what I had to develop, is people, this will trigger that subconscious response in people's brains to get them to say, yeah, I want it. It's the same thing as like a Snickers candy bar. When I walk into a grocery store, I'm like, I love Snickers peanut butter. I'm like, my brain is just like, yes, get it. Yes. That's what you have to develop on YouTube. So that's where I started, man. From beginning to end, it was just like, I'm going to do tips and just teach. Yeah. And people were like, these are good tips. And that was it. It was just a perfect mesh.
Okay, so but it hasn't stayed there, right? And so it started with your YouTube, making tips for Stardew Valley, which is amazing. By the way, you were able to, right? I think everybody knows that content creation is some percentage, some percentage, right? It's a great deal of it is like skill and intentionality and thumbnails, and, consistency, all of those things. Then there's a small percentage in everybody's story who's found a good bit of success that there's luck involved, right? And so you rode the wave for Fortnite.
Right. Got in early. Yep.
What I love, Denver, about what you're doing now is a lot of people would have just said, how big can I get? Right. But you have pivoted your success on YouTube into a business where you are now helping others. Am I right? Like, so what does that look like? And how did that happen? Like, how did that happen where you transitioned? Was it like a thing? It's like, man, I got a family. I got this stuff I need to find. I can't be like riding the wave of every video that I put out. Like, I need to find a more consistent, dependable form of income, because I have a family, because I have bills. Was it something that like someone just came to you and was like, hey, would you teach me how to do this? And you're like, maybe there's a business here. Was that the plan all along? Was to like, let's get a successful channel up and running and then launch into consulting? How did that come about? Yeah.
So, it's kind of funny. Like when you think about how the Lord works, you look back and you go, man, he just guided me like step by step. And it's easy, but complex to answer. I was doing YouTube, right? And Fortnite went kind of like this. It was like up, and all of a sudden he felt that little turn. Yep. And I've always been very in tune with like, did we jump the shark? And sure enough, the shark was jumped. And now, but it's going to be a good game. People are still making content on Fortnite, years later, and it's still successful. But I felt that, and I thought, what do I do next? What do I do? Do I jump to a different game? Do I do a different style of video? And then eventually I got offered a job as a creative director from a mentor of mine who I wouldn't be here without him. Genius. I think he's a literal genius. I joked one day, I said, hey, by the way, if Fortnite dies, which on YouTube, if your niche dies, you die. You got to jump. Yep. You got to jump to a different ship. And I said, if Fortnite dies, I said, save a spot for me on your team. And we both laughed. And about a week later, he said, by the way, I wasn't joking. I would hire you in a heartbeat. And I'm like, me? I'm just a Fortnite news and update and tips guy. Like, what? How could I possibly help you in like variety general gaming? And sure enough, I tried it and I loved it. And it was just like, oh my gosh. I guess to answer one of your questions is, I never had a drive for fame. And I thank the Lord for it. And I don't know if it's like, and again, it's a Christian podcast, but I listened to a lot of Eminem as a teenager. I just liked him. He was like, you could, through all the bad stuff, like the cussing and stuff, he was telling a story of his life and throughout all of his early albums. And one of the things that I picked up on was how much he hated being known, how much he hated fame. And then I started seeing that with everybody who sought fame and got fame, hated fame. Yep. They hated it. And so I thought from early on, because I was a teacher and I wanted to protect my privacy, and like, I didn't want somebody showing up in my school saying, hey, are you that Denver guy? So I wanted to protect my privacy, school's privacy, my family's privacy, but also I just don't like being known for myself. I credit that to the Lord. I think that's a good thing to have, like, because it's so easy to say, I want people to recognize me. Like, I've been recognized. It feels good. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's like, this guy at, Walgreens literally recognized my voice, not even, not my face. He didn't know my face. He goes, I saw your name. I watched your videos. It's a good feeling, but it's like, that credit goes to us. It goes into our head blows up and we think we're something special. And so it's almost like through prayer, I've had the Lord limit me from that for a long time. And it's, I cannot describe it, but now with what I do now, so just to be clear with what I do, I'm full-time creative director, channel manager. I work with many channels right now. And we just get them views. And you know what I call myself? A ghost. I'm a ghost. I'm on the back end. I exist to make them look good. That's it. Every once in a while I put a tweet out. I say, look at what we're doing, because it obviously generates business. I don't like to tweet. I don't like to be out there. In fact, podcasts, I don't even do a lot of them. I just love what you guys are doing, just because it's like, I just have something in me where I don't want any notoriety. I just want to be able to make a decent living, whatever the Lord allows, and pay bills and spend more time with my family. And fortunately, through all the work that I do now and some very helpful assistance, I'm able to have probably more time than when I was doing YouTube myself. It's awesome. I can do it very quickly. It is not a time requirement kind of job. What might take somebody 8 hours to sketch thumbnails and get millions of views could take me 20 minutes. Yeah. It could take an hour, right? So once you get really good at it and you know how YouTube works, you could just do it. And then I get to just disappear and go spend time with my family. And I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm not going to knock anybody for wanting fame. There's a lot of good that comes from people recognizing your face. Think like Alex Hormozy on the internet right now. People see him, they're like, oh, I love that guy. He's like a celebrity now on the internet. I don't mind, and I enjoy just being in the background. I enjoy it. And I thank the Lord for it, because fame is easy to crave, right? Yeah. And attention and validation. So yeah. I don't know if that answers your question.
No. Yeah. It 100% does. And I think it's really helpful. I think that in this space, especially people, we really started this podcast, Denver, to help people who are discerning, is this a direction that God is leading me in? Because when we decided to plant Lux and start our church, I really struggled with that. And I wrestled with it for about 3 months is this something something that God is telling me to do, or is it something that Mark really wants to do? Because it's one thing, like, you kind of know God's telling you to do it when it's like, hey, I want you to move to Africa or Brazil and, you know, change your entire life and become a missionary in a third world country. And you're like, okay, yeah, like, I wouldn't have wanted to do that. So it makes sense that God wants to do that. But when God,
it's easy when you don't want to do it, but like, oh, okay, it must be the Lord.
When God calls you into a place of your passion, it's easy to convince yourself that you are the one who wants to do it. And sometimes it is. And so I love that word, because it's a piece of advice and a warning, I think, for a lot of people's hearts who are getting into it because they see what appears to be a streamer who's famous or a YouTuber who gets a lot of views. And we all like that, right? We like to see numbers go up. We like to be recognized. We want to be known. I think there's some level of desire for that in every person to a certain extent. So I think it's a really helpful thing to hear you share your heart. It's like, in some ways, like, hey guys, if you're doing this, if you're just going to get into this space because you want to be known, and the gospel and the kingdom and the work that you're doing is second to you becoming famous or you becoming known or you becoming wealthy, whatever. I don't think most people get into the content creation to be wealthy. I think it's to be known. Like, you might need to check your heart and make sure that the reason that you're getting into this, which is a major point of contention for me, because I'm not like you in the fact that I don't want to play second fiddle. I don't want to be in the backseat. I've never wanted to do that. And so I always have to contend with my own pride and ego and desire to be known as the lead pastor of our church. And I have to contend with that more now than ever before, because the buck does stop with me in our organization. So I love that word. Denver, you've gotten the chance to work with a lot of people who are pretty well known in the YouTube space and channels that you've really helped to grow. And from our conversation before we started recording, grow well beyond the size of your own personal channel and your own personal content. You're a Christian who's living in this space. Faith is vital and important to you. How do you live that out? Is there points of conflict when you're working with a client maybe who either A, isn't a Christian, or B, is a Christian, but their convictions don't run as deep as yours, especially when it comes to the content that they make? How do you manage that? Is it like, do you have like a strictly like professional and personal like separation there? How integrated is your faith into the conversations that you have with clients? What does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my faith, and it's like, I guess I could start by saying I can't say every night, but most nights I pray. I have to say the prayer, Lord, if this doesn't glorify you and this is to glorify me, take it away. And I encourage any business owner to say that same prayer. And I got to tell you, sometimes it's tough to say. Because it does make some pretty good money, you know, and it's like I've had to come to terms with growing up with little, and I don't wear that as like, you know, some victim status. I grew up poor, you know, some people carry that as like I came from nothing. I didn't have much, whatever. If I go back to not having much and that's the Lord's will, then so be it. You know what I mean? You gotta adopt the attitude of it doesn't matter if the Lord has me in a mansion on a hill or if I'm in a cardboard box in an alleyway, I will serve him. And that's it, you know? And so I really, it took me a while to come to that and that realization. And so when I go into what I do for business, you get Denver, the Christian. That's all I am. I am a follower of Jesus Christ. And I will say that to everybody that I work with. I work with Jewish people. I work with Muslims. I work with Christians who maybe aren't technically, you know, actual followers of Christ. I'm not here to judge, you know, but I'm just like, it exudes out of me, and I wouldn't have it any other way. You know, I always think if someone's going to have an issue with me for me following Jesus Christ, A, we were warned that's going to happen. It will happen. And B, that's probably a good thing. So I'm like, it's almost like I'm walking around, you know, with my name tag that says Denver, follower of Jesus. And in a way, could it hurt business sometimes? Yeah, but that's the best way to weed out potential bad business, right? Like, I want people who just know that and are comfortable with that and if I can bring people to Christ through this, one of the thoughts I always had was like, Lord, you put me on this platform so I can reach millions of people. It's awesome. Like I used to talk Fortnite, here's your tips. And at the end of the video, I'd be like, by the way, if you're going through a hard time, there's light at the end of the tunnel. There's hope, there's peace. I'd be able to talk these biblical concepts. And I'm very open about my faith, especially on social media. But when I started working with other YouTubers and stuff, I thought, man, I was affecting millions. Now I can lead people and hopefully bring to Christ people who affect hundreds of millions. And I'm like, what a great thing. Thank you, Lord, for allowing me to do that. Help me to do it for you and not for myself. Like I want to be very careful that I'm not going around going, oh, I brought that guy to Christ. Or, it's like, oh, I put out a tweet today and said your name in it, Jesus. Haha, aren't I? So it's just like, Lord, just lead me. I don't know what I want. My ego, I just want what you want and your will, Lord. And that's it. Move me to the side. Just use me. And that's it. And so that involves things that I like doing, like you said, things that I'm passionate about, and things that terrify me, like getting up in front of 80 youth. Maybe it's easy to some people like you, but I'm not used to it. Put me in front of 29 and 10-year-olds, I'm all right. But middle school, high school kids, adults, they're going to judge you, but I'm like, Lord, this is so hard. I will be anxious for literally weeks leading up to it, and good, because serving you isn't always easy. So anyways, yeah, that's just where my mind's at. I'm like, Lord, you give me this, or you take it away. That's it. I want your will. I don't even want prayer and petition. I just want the prayer. I don't even want petition. Just tell me what I should want. So that's where I'm at these days. Lord, guide my steps. I want nothing else.
Wow. Denver, do you make your own content still, or do you primarily just work with other people's channels at this point?
Yeah, no. Besides, I do social media and stuff because I have to tweet because it helps the business. That's the only content creation I do in terms of video content creation. None. I might go back to it someday. About 4 years ago, I put out my last upload. I didn't know it was going to be my last upload. I just did it. And then I had this creative director job. I already had 2 channels I was working with. I started as like, well, supplemental income. Why not? I can do my channel and I have plenty of extra time. Why not? And I finally just was like, I'm done with this. On to the next chapter. And I feel like some people still message me and are like, yeah, I miss your videos. And, maybe I let some people down and stuff, but I just felt like the Lord was saying, okay, chapter's over, on to the next. And I go, okay.
Yeah.
And that's it. So maybe someday I'll update again. I'll put a video out like, hey, here's where I am today. Sorry for bailing on you guys so many years ago. But yeah, so far, just tweets, pretty much just Twitter. That's it.
I think that's a really interesting and I think that's a really it's really a heads up thing for you to recognize when specific seasons have come to an end. And in our case, it was very, very different. But I streamed on a personal channel for the first couple of years that our church existed. But we always knew I'm not streaming here to grow our church. My channel's much smaller. I'm not streaming here. I'm streaming here because whenever I reach out to Christian missionaries and live streamers, if I don't stream myself, they will never talk to me because I'm just a weird guy from the internet at that point. If they can see that I have content out there, and it took until we started Nerd Culture Ministry Summit, which was really started through a summit that we did before that called Megazord, and we brought about 21 creators and live streamers and org leaders into Cincinnati, and it was there that it was like, I don't have to stream anymore. Like I make a little bit of content on YouTube myself on a real small channel with a couple hundred subs because I just enjoy doing it, and I don't do it consistently, and I put out a video every couple of weeks just because I like talking about nerdy things. And so it's a good avenue for me to sit down and be creative in a way that isn't involving my job. But I love like you being able to read the landscape and say, God does call us to things seasonally, which I think is really important. Can I ask, just out of curiosity, how old were you when that transition happened, when you went from making your own content to hanging up the stuff with your own content and transitioning to just helping other people get their content out there?
Yeah, I'd say I started my channel at like 26, I think 32.
Yeah.
I decided, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I guess if you go about 4.5 years ago, 32, 33, I was just done. It's like an athlete just saying, yeah, I'm ready for retirement. I'm a big NFL guy too. And it's just like you get these, you'll see a tweet on, I call it Twitter, but X. you'll see them just hang up their cleats, and that's it. They're like, I'm done. And that's what I did. And it was really strange, but I just thought, it's time. Like, there wasn't, I guess one of the ways that I operate, and a lot of these top YouTubers, is you don't ask whether you feel like it or not. And you were telling me as we were talking before we started here, like, you got into working out, and it's with working out, one of the things you got to come to is just, you go to the gym. You're going to have bad workout days. You're going to have good workout days. If you go to the gym and you do it every day or every other day for a long period of time, you're going to see the results, and it's just like, point being, you don't operate in this realm of, I feel like it or I don't. And I think that's one of the biggest hurdles for entrepreneurs and early content creators coming up. They ask themselves, do I feel like making a video today? The answer is yes. You should feel like you should make a video today. Should I go for a 15-minute walk today? Yes. Objectively, so that's kind of how I operate. And I feel like the Lord just leads me down that path of just like, okay, done with that. Okay, moving on. It's not even like oh, my soul is torn. If your soul is torn, maybe it's not time. You know what I mean? Like, my soul was not torn. It was done. I hung up my cleats. I moved into the next stage of my life. And however long this goes, I'm going to give it my all, and I'm going to serve the Lord while I'm doing it. And the moment he says it's time, and this is everything in my life. This is when we move. When we moved to this house, I'm looking out the window. I've got neighbors. I thought, Lord, this house is a little more expensive than I'm used to in my life. Like I said, we didn't have big houses. We didn't have much growing up. And I thought, this house is a little too much, Lord. And the peace that I had during this was just like, I have you there for a reason. And I'm like, okay, Lord, whatever it is. Okay, that's fine. If we're only here for 2 months and we got to sell it, and I got to learn I got to learn this lesson in leaning on the world, or was it for, was this house for me? You know what I'm talking about. But is there a neighbor in this street that I'm supposed to reach? Right. And so if I start making YouTube videos again, it will be because the Lord has me needing to reach somebody who's going to end up watching my video. And that's just how I live my life. It's like, it's yours, Lord. I am yours. Use me. And that's it.
Yeah. Well, the reason I asked that, I was 32, 33 when God moved in our lives to start our church. And as we were going through that, I sat down with a spiritual mentor of mine, and I explained to him where we were. And he said, Mark, if you look at the scriptures, you will find over and over again that people in their 30s in their early 30s, get moved into something new by the Lord. Over and over again. And
interesting.
It's amazing to me how many people, through doing this show and talking to people in this space, that between the age of 30 and 34, God completely and radically changed what they were doing and moved them into something new, something that was a bit unpredictable. And they had the faith to step into that thing and not stick with what they knew. And God has rewarded that faithfulness. And the spiritual mentor of mine just said, it is very, very common for God to do something fresh and new and move you into something unknown and really stretch you in your early 30s. And
I never thought about that, but that's a great point. You're going to have me looking around now going, when did you start? Just like Jesus, right? I mean,
you would be amazed at how many people right around the age that Jesus was when he started his public ministry.
So when I said 32, you were like,
yep, that makes a lot of sense. Yep, that makes a lot of sense. That's when Jesus started his ministry. You see that in a lot. You actually see that in multiple biblical characters. I'm not going to go through them all right now, but multiple biblical characters who it seems like right in and around that age mark, God did something new in their lives, and so
it's kind of where I dropped my. I don't know if I had a lot of shame, but in your 20s, especially in your teens, you're like, am I cool for? And now in my 30s, I'm like, you're not cool if you don't love the Lord. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't need a Romans verse to say you got to be unashamed. I'm unashamed, man. Anybody who asks, I'm like, I love the Lord. I serve Jesus Christ. Oh, your invisible friend in the sky, whatever you want to call him. Yeah, I love my Father and Jesus Christ, and I will serve them till the end. Yeah, and it was probably right around that age where I'm just like, yeah, let's go. Let's, as you say, ministry. Let's start this ministry. Yeah, I like that.
Well, Denver, we could probably sit here and riff for a really long time, but I do know that we need to land the plane, and both of our families are going to be back home in the not too distant future, and that causes disruptions in podcast recordings. So let me ask you this, and it's a question I've asked pretty much everyone who's been on this show, which is if you were to think back to Denver, he's working at a school. You come home in the evening, you have this love for gaming, and you're thinking through making your first video. You're getting ready to put out your first video, getting ready to record it and stuff. You don't know that you're about to spend the next couple years of your life up until 1 or 2 in the morning every day and then grinding at work. Another crucible experience that is strikingly in almost every person's story. What word of advice here today in 2025 would you give that Denver working at the school and getting ready to upload his first videos to YouTube?
That is a great question. I would say number one, it's possible. Because a lot of us did not think any of this was possible, right? You run in, conferences and stuff like that. Like, what a cool thing to do. Me sitting with this behind me, like, I go, whoa, like if I never started, I wouldn't have got that. So that's possible. That right there is possible for anybody listening to this.
And that is the gold plaque, that's
the gold one.
Yes,
that's my 1 mil, my 1 mil subs. It's like, it's a cool achievement, but it's like, if I were to tell myself it's possible, I remember a cousin, my cousin who did YouTube, he goes, so what are you going to do when your YouTube income passes your teaching income? And I'm like, yeah, right. Are you out of your mind, dude? Took about 6 months and it did. Mm-hmm. So it is possible. You just never know. If you grew up like me, you grew up with the 9 to 5 mentality, go to college, do your job, do it till you're 60, 65, and then you get to retire. You do not have to do that. But here's the thing. Number 2 is go where the Lord calls you. Mm-hmm. That is the most important things, the thing that we can lead our lives with. When the Lord tells you to go, you just go. Yeah. Don't ask whether you feel like it or not. Amen. Don't overthink anything. You have a father the same way our dads, think about if you have a good father, right? My father had his issues, but he loved me. Would he protect me? Would he want the best for me? Would he guide me? Yes. Now multiply that by infinity. That's our father. Trust him. Mm. He will tell you where to go. Don't overthink it. Just say, okay, Lord, and just start walking down the paths and the doors that he opens up. But this takes every day saying, Lord, I give you myself. I surrender. You lead me. I don't want my own path. I want your path because I know it's good. So that'd be the second thing I would tell myself is make sure that every day you surrender yourself to the Lord and you seek his will.
I love that. Well, Denver, thank you so much for coming on the show. I think if I had some takeaways from this, it is, there is a season of testing that requires a lot of grit and resiliency in every calling. And those seasons of grit and resiliency sometimes come in the form of being up until 1 or 2 in the morning, grinding out videos every day, and sometimes they come in different forms. But God prepares us for what's moving forward. I think from the most practical standpoint of just making content that will actually get views is stop being so concerned about what I'm personally passionate about and start being more concerned with what will actually serve other people. Come out of the selfish mentality of what content do I want to make and step into a more selfless mentality of what content would actually serve people and benefit them if they were to click on it, and I make that content good. And then I think also lastly is your level of tenacity for consistent improvement, because it's very clear that each step of the way, and this has been the true of every person we've had on here that's had success on YouTube, is just a a constant commitment to learn a little bit more. That's from the really practical side. From the faith-based side, thank you so much for being able to fearlessly share your faith no matter what clients that you're working with, and allowing that to be something that weeds out the ones that maybe aren't the best clients for you, but also setting that example for us of, hey, listen, success, money, fame, they're not worth it if it means that you are outside of where God wants you and you're living in disobedience. So thank you for seeking to live in obedience. And yeah, man, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it, man. Yeah, great show, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, we're hoping to have Denver at Nerd Culture Ministry Summit April 14th to the 16th in 2026. We're going to be back in beautiful Garden of the Gods in Colorado Springs, which is gorgeous. And we're going to be in the Navigator's Castle, nestled directly into the spires of Redstone in Garden of the Gods. In this year, not only do we have the castle building, but we rented out every other building and every other lodge on the property. So imagine this: every person that you see will either be a staff of Glen Erie Castle or there for Nerd Culture Ministry Summit. We have more tickets and more rooms available than we did last year. So if you're listening to this and you're interested in coming, getting trained and equipped, this whole year our theme is onward. It's the idea of let's not just dream and envision stuff. Let's turn those things into reality. We're going to be highlighting workshops that are going to be just as important as our keynotes. We already have a couple of workshops slated and ready to go. And you can learn about those and our keynote speakers as we line them up by simply pre-registering. We'll put you on an email list, send you a monthly email, and give you early access so that you can be one of the first ones to register formally for Nerd Culture Ministry Summit 2026 whenever we open up registration this fall. That's going to do it for us here at the NCMU Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening, and we'll catch you back here on the next episode.